The Galactic Council was the greatest power in the known universe. Its chamber was built from shining metal and crystal, floating above a blue star. Here leaders of hundreds of alien races met to decide the fate of worlds. Every species that had once resisted their rule had been forced to bow. Some had been broken in war, others had been crushed with fear. The Council had ruled for thousands of years, and they believed no one could stand against them. On this day, the chamber was filled with voices, sharp and arrogant. The topic was humanity, a species from a small, unimportant planet called Earth. Compared to the ancient empires of the galaxy, they were young and weak. They had only just begun to travel between stars. Their fleets were small, their colonies were new, and their weapons were nothing special. One alien lord, his skin like burning bronze, spoke loudly so all could hear. Humanity is stubborn, but they are not strong. They must surrender to the Council, as others have done before them. Earth must pay tribute, and their armies must be disbanded. The humans will kneel. Another alien with a body like flowing smoke laughed in agreement. They think they are different, the being said, its voice echoing like a storm. But they are only prey. The Council is the hunter. They will bow, and they will serve. Around the chamber, the other races nodded. This was the way of things. No one had ever dared refuse, but there was one concern. Humanity had not yet answered the demand. The Council had sent messages, orders, and warnings. Weeks had passed, yet Earth was silent. No envoy had arrived. No surrender had been signed. The chamber grew restless. Silence from a lesser race was unusual. Normally, fear drove them to beg for mercy. A silver-skinned elder, her eyes glowing with cold fire, raised a hand for silence. "Do not be troubled," she said. "Humans are slow to accept their fate, but they will. We will give them one last chance. When they hear our demand today, they will understand there is no other choice." At her command, a giant screen lit up in the chamber. The faces of the Council's ambassadors appeared, transmitting across the void to Earth itself. The demand was clear and final. People of Earth, the Council's voice boomed, translated into every human tongue. You are called to surrender. You will kneel before the authority of the Galactic Council. You will disarm your fleets, hand over your colonies, and submit to our rule. If you refuse, your world will burn, and your people will be forgotten. The chamber was silent for a moment. The alien lords sat tall, proud, and certain. For them, this was the natural order. They expected begging, crying, or perhaps a broken promise of obedience. That was what always came next, but instead there was nothing, no words. No cries, no plea for mercy. The humans did not answer at once. The signal remained open, but Earth was silent. Minutes passed. Then an hour, then more. The Council members shifted uncomfortably. Some grew impatient. Others laughed, saying this was only human pride before the fall. Finally, the ambassador from the smoke-like species spoke again. Perhaps they are too afraid to speak. Perhaps they hide like insects before the storm. The bronze-skinned lord struck the table with his claw. Enough waiting. If they do not answer, then we should crush them now. Why give them more time? But the elder with silver skin smiled coldly. No, they will speak, and when they do, their pride will shatter before us. We will enjoy their fall even more. So the chamber waited. Outside the Council's halls, whispers spread across the galaxy. Traders, soldiers, and spies spoke of Earth's silence. Was humanity preparing to kneel, or were they preparing for something else? No one knew. The Council, however, was certain. They believed the silence was only fear, but in truth something else was happening. Something none of them could imagine. Far away on a small blue planet, human leaders were gathering. They had received the Council's demand. They had read the threats, the promises of fire and destruction. And yet, instead of fear, a different fire burned in their hearts. For centuries, humanity had struggled against impossible odds. They had fought wars, survived disasters, and rebuilt again and again. They were not the oldest race, not the strongest, but they were something far more dangerous. They were survivors. They were dreamers, and they were builders. In the quiet of Earth's war rooms and secret stations, humanity was not speaking of surrender. They were speaking of defiance. The council did not know it, but the silence was not weakness. It was preparation. And soon, the galaxy would learn what kind of fire lived in mankind's soul. The council waited for humanity's bow. But what was coming would make the stars themselves tremble. The council chamber was restless. Hours had turned into days, and still no word came from Earth. Alien lords whispered among themselves, some angry, some mocking, but all certain of the outcome. To them, humanity's silence was weakness, a delay before the inevitable bow. But then, on the third day, the screen lit up. Every voice in the chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the transmission. For the first time, the humans had answered. The image was simple. A single human stood before a flag of blue and green, the earth itself shining in the background. The figure wore no armor, no crown, no weapons, only a plain black suit. But there was something in his posture, something in the way he looked directly into the eyes of the council that silenced even the most arrogant among them. He began to speak. His voice was calm, steady, and translated into every tongue across the stars. Leaders of the council, for weeks you have sent us demands. You told us to kneel. You told us to surrender our weapons, our colonies, and our freedom. You promised destruction if we refused. We have heard your threats. We understand your power, and we have considered your demand. The council members leaned forward. This was the moment. They expected to hear fear, submission, the begging cry of another broken race. But the human's eyes were steady, and his words cut through the silence like steel. We will not kneel. The chamber erupted in shock. Dozens of alien voices rose at once, furious and disbelieving. No one had ever spoken such words to the council, not in living memory. The screen flickered as the noise of the chamber shook the halls. The human did not raise his voice. He simply continued, calm as stone. You see us as weak. You see us as small. You believe our world is nothing compared to your empires. But you are mistaken. Humanity has faced wars, disasters, and extinctions. We have been burned, broken, and starved. And every time we have risen again. You cannot threaten us with death. We are born from it. You cannot frighten us with war. We have lived it. You cannot break us with chains. We have broken every chain before. Some council members shouted for the transmission to be cut. Others demanded the human be silenced. But the elder with silver skin raised her hand again. Her cold eyes watched closely, curious despite herself. Let him finish, she said, and so he did. You ask for our surrender. But hear this. Humanity does not bow, not to tyrants, not to conquerors, not to any council. We stand free. And we will remain free. If you come with fleets, then you will meet ours. If you bring fire, then you will face fire in return. If you try to erase us, then we will make sure our name is burned into the stars forever. We are not prey. We are not your servants. We are humanity. He paused, and for a moment his voice softened. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But if war is forced upon us, then we will fight with everything we are. We will fight until the sky itself is dark with our ships. We will fight until the last star fades, and if that day comes, it will not be us who remember fear. It will be you. With those final words, the transmission ended. The screen went dark. The chamber exploded with chaos. Alien lords shouted, some in fury, some in fear. To them, the words were madness. Humanity was too small, too weak, too fragile. To defy the council was suicide. The bronze-skinned lord roared with laughter. Did you hear it? Empty threats from a child race. They dare challenge the council. We will crush their world to ash, and no one will remember their name. But the elder with silver skin did not laugh. She sat silently, her glowing eyes unblinking, her thoughts heavy. She had heard many promises in her life, many cries of defiance. Yet something about the human's words was different. They had not sounded like a desperate bluff. They had sounded like a vow. The council voted quickly. Humanity would be punished. Fleets would be sent. Their resistance would be crushed before it could spread. To the council, this was simple, but beyond their halls, the galaxy was not so certain. Whispers spread faster now, racing through markets and outposts into the ears of soldiers and smugglers. The humans had refused. The humans had dared to defy. Some laughed at their foolishness. Others admired their courage. And still others wondered, what if the humans were serious? Back on Earth, the ambassador lowered his voice after the broadcast ended. He turned to the generals and leaders behind him. "They will come," he said. "The council will not forgive our words. They will come with their fleets." The room was silent. Everyone knew it was true. But instead of fear, something else filled the air. Determination. "Then let them come," one general said. "We will be ready." And across the earth, preparations began. Shipyards that had been silent roared to life. Colonies sent resources in secret. Hidden bases were armed. Factories worked without rest. Humanity had spoken. They would not bow. The galaxy believed Earth was still weak. But the humans knew the truth. Their silence had bought them time. They would build the answer to the Council's arrogance. The words had been spoken. The vow had been made. And in the shadows of space, humanity's armada was waiting to be born. The Council believed humanity had made its final mistake. The vote was swift and brutal. Fleets would be sent. Earth would be crushed, and the humans would serve as an example for all other races. But while the Council celebrated their coming victory, something else was happening, far from their eyes. Humanity was not trembling. Humanity was building. Across Earth, the sound of industry roared. Great shipyards that once produced vessels for trade were converted into war factories. Flames and smoke lit the skies above steel cities as workers labored day and night. Every machine, every worker, every resource was turned toward a single purpose, preparing for the war that was coming. Factories that had stood silent were reawakened. Ancient bunkers hidden deep in mountains were reopened. Engineers dusted off old blueprints, designs once thought impossible, and began shaping them into steel reality. On the moon, massive hangars opened their doors. From beneath the grey dust, ships rose one by one, armored and armed. Mars, scarred and red, built fortresses across its deserts. Its shipyards produced vessels that dwarfed anything Earth had ever created before. Even the asteroid belt, once ignored, became alive with secret construction. Hollowed-out asteroids became hidden bases, each one ready to launch fire into the void. Everywhere, humanity worked in silence. But it was not easy. Earth did not command endless resources. They were young compared to the Council's vast empires. What they lacked in wealth, they replaced with determination. People gave everything, time, labor, even their lives, to ensure the fleets would be ready. Families went without comfort. Children watched their parents leave for the shipyards, not knowing when or if they would return. Yet there was no despair. There was pride. Every person knew they were part of something greater, something that might decide the fate of their entire species. The Council's spies searched for signs of weakness. They saw Earth's silence and reported arrogance. They saw no desperate pleas for peace, no white flags raised, and assumed humanity was foolishly ignoring its doom. But they did not see the hidden work. The humans were too careful, too disciplined. They built their storm beneath a curtain of secrecy. In hidden command centers, generals studied the Council's fleets. They memorized their formations, their tactics, their weaknesses. Humanity had no illusions. The Council was powerful, far stronger than Earth had ever faced. But humans had always been survivors, and survivors learned to fight smarter, not just harder. Strategies were drawn. Simulations ran day and night. Some plans ended in fire and destruction, but others showed hope. Humanity would never match the Council's numbers. But if they struck with precision, with speed, with unity, then even the greatest empire could bleed. The human fleets began to take shape. They were not sleek like the ships of the elder races. They were not decorated with jewels or golden banners. They were iron, steel, and fire, brutal in design, built for one purpose only: war. Each ship carried the mark of sacrifice. Steel from skyscrapers was melted into hulls. Engines were built from metals pulled out of Earth's deepest mines. Colonies sent their resources freely, knowing that if Earth fell, they would follow. One admiral looked upon the rising ships and whispered, "They may laugh at us. They may call us weak. But when these ships rise, the galaxy will never laugh again." As months passed, the armada grew. Scouts reported on Council fleets massing at distant borders, preparing to march on Earth. Humanity knew their time was short. Yet they did not panic. They worked faster, harder. Even children in schools built small components to help the cause. The silence that the galaxy mistook for fear was, in truth, the silence of preparation. But it was not only ships that were being built. Humanity was also shaping something else, unity. For the first time in centuries, Earth's nations stood as one. Old rivalries were buried, old wounds forgotten. No flag flew higher than another. They were all human, and together they faced the storm. This unity gave them strength the Council had never imagined. No other species had ever fought with such passion, such fury, such stubborn will. Humanity was not merely fighting for survival, they were fighting for freedom, for dignity, for their right to exist as more than slaves under alien chains. In secret meetings, human leaders spoke quietly. Some feared the cost. Some wondered if survival was even possible. But every time doubt rose, someone would repeat the same words. Words that had spread like fire across Earth and its colonies. "We will not bow," and the doubt would vanish. As the final days approached, Earth's skies grew darker with ships. From orbit, one could see hundreds, then thousands of vessels waiting like silent guardians. Fighters, frigates, cruisers, battleships, all aligned, all ready. The moon's surface glowed with launch lights. Mars thundered with engines, and the asteroid belt shimmered with hidden fleets. The storm was ready. Far away, the Council prepared its march. Alien admirals smiled at the thought of Earth's burning cities. To them, the humans were still only insects, but they did not. No, they did not see, and they could not imagine what waited for them. Humanity's silence was about to end. The storm they had built in secret was ready to be unleashed, and when it came, it would cover the heavens. The day the Council had waited for finally came. In the heart of their shining chamber, alien admirals and lords watched as their fleets departed. Thousands of ships, older and larger than anything humanity had ever built, surged across the stars. Their engines lit the void with fire. Their weapons glittered like a storm of death. To the Council, this was not war. It was punishment, a reminder to every world that no one defied their will. They expected Earth to break in hours, maybe days at most. By the end of this week, the bronze-skinned lord sneered, "The humans will kneel in chains, and their world will burn as a lesson." The chamber filled with laughter, but not everyone was laughing. The elder with silver skin, whose eyes glowed like frozen stars, watched in silence. She remembered the words of the human ambassador, words that did not sound like fear, words that still haunted her. Far across the void, the human home system prepared. For months, the skies had grown darker with ships. Now they waited in silence. Engines cold, weapons quiet, hidden in orbits, in craters and behind asteroids. Humanity's armada did not move. It simply watched. Children on Earth looked up at the night sky and whispered to one another. The stars seemed dimmer now. Not because the stars were fading, but because the ships were so many, they had begun to block them out. Mothers told their children not to fear. Fathers tightened their hands on tools, on weapons, on hope. Soldiers sat quietly in their stations, eyes fixed on the blackness where the Council's fleets would come. Every man, woman, and child knew what was at stake. If Earth fell, humanity would end. There would be no second chance. And then the sky trembled. Sensors lit up across the system. The Council's fleets had arrived. Thousands of alien warships, their hulls gleaming with centuries of victory, surged from hyperspace. They came like a tidal wave, confident, unstoppable. Their admirals smiled. "It will be quick," they said. At first it seemed they were right. From orbit, alien ships filled the heavens, blotting out light, their weapons aimed at Earth. To the Council, it looked as though the humans had no defense. No ships rose to meet them. No armies rushed to resist. The bronze-skinned lord laughed across the command channel. "Where is your courage now, humans? Where is your defiance? You will bow or you will die." But then the silence broke. From Earth's surface, engines roared. The moon trembled. Mars ignited with fire. From hidden bases across the asteroid belt, shadows began to move. One ship rose, then another, then a dozen, then 100. And then the heavens themselves seemed to open. Human warships surged upward, thousands upon thousands, rising like steel giants from every world and rock they had touched. Fighters like swarms of hornets, cruisers like floating fortresses, battleships that shook the void with their size. From orbit, it looked as if the very stars were disappearing. The sky, once filled with alien ships, was now crowded with human steel. The Council fleets froze. Their admirals stared in disbelief. This cannot be," one whispered. But it was. Humanity's silence had not been weakness. It had been preparation. And now that silence ended with thunder, the lead human flagship moved to the front of the armada. Its hull was scarred from years of building, but its guns shone with fire. Across every channel, a single human voice echoed, "You demanded our surrender. This is our answer." And with those words, every ship in the human fleet powered its weapons. Engines lit the void with blue flame. Shields shimmered. Guns locked. For the first time in countless centuries, the Council felt fear. The bronze-skinned lord tried to laugh, but his voice trembled. They cannot match us. They are too few, too weak." But his words rang hollow even to himself. Because in that moment, the truth was undeniable. The humans had built an armada vast enough to challenge the Council's might. An armada born not of wealth or empire, but of unity, sacrifice, and defiance. And worst of all, every human ship, from the smallest fighter to the greatest battleship, moved as one. Perfectly united, perfectly willing to fight to the last breath. In the command chamber of the human flagship, the admiral gave a single order: stand ready. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for our place among the stars. They wanted our chains. Instead, we will show them our fire. The alien fleets wavered. They had never seen resistance like this. They had never seen prey bare its teeth. And as the first human missiles ignited, cutting through the black void, the Council realized something dreadful. The day of judgment had come. But it was not humanity being judged, it was them. The void was silent for a heartbeat. Thousands of alien ships hovered over Earth, weapons armed, engines burning, their admirals certain of victory. For centuries, the Council had crushed resistance with ease. They expected the same now. But then the silence shattered. Humanity's armada surged forward. Engines roared like thunder, filling the dark with blue fire. Fighters streaked ahead in swarms, so many they looked like rivers of light crossing the black sky. Behind them, frigates and cruisers locked into formation, their guns glowing as they charged. The first missile streaked across space. A white trail cut through the darkness, striking an alien cruiser. In an instant, fire bloomed across its hull. The ship broke apart, torn in two, its crew lost before they could even scream. The Council fleets froze in shock. For the first time in memory, it was not they who struck first. It was humanity. The bronze-skinned lord roared into his comms. "Fire! Destroy them! Erase them!" Alien ships opened fire. Beams of light and plasma storms crossed the void, smashing into human shields. Dozens of human fighters were torn apart. A frigate near the front line broke apart under the Council's weapons, its crew vanishing in a burst of flame. But humanity did not falter. For every ship destroyed, another took its place. For every fighter lost, 10 more surged forward with fury. The human admiral gave the order, "All ships, advance!" And the heavens erupted. The alien fleets tried to press forward, relying on their numbers and their centuries of dominance. But humanity's ships moved with precision. Each vessel fought not for itself, but for the whole. They shielded one another, covered one another, sacrificed for one another. Alien admirals shouted in disbelief. Their formations were breaking. Their proud fleets, once unstoppable, were being cut apart by fire and steel. A swarm of human fighters dived beneath the shields of a massive alien battleship, striking its engines with coordinated missiles. The giant vessel groaned, shook, and then exploded, its wreckage scattering into the void. Another alien cruiser tried to flank the human line, but was met by a squadron of Mars-built destroyers. Their cannons hammered its hull until it broke into molten fragments. The Council had expected prey. What they faced was a predator. In the command chamber of the human flagship, the Admiral stood tall, his face calm. He watched as his fleet fought with the fury of 1,000 years of struggle. "This is our answer," he said softly. Across the galaxy, billions watched the battle unfold. Traders, soldiers, and spies carried the images back to distant worlds. Species who had long feared the Council stared in disbelief. They saw human ships blazing with fire, tearing through fleets that had once seemed untouchable. They saw humanity refusing to bow, and whispers began. "If the humans can fight, maybe we can too." The battle raged on. Hours passed, but humanity did not yield. Alien weapons shattered hulls, but the humans fought back twice as hard. For every city destroyed on Earth's surface, a Council cruiser fell. For every station shattered, an alien battleship burned. The bronze-skinned lord grew desperate. His ships were falling faster than he had ever imagined. He snarled into his comms, his voice cracking. "They are only insects. Crush them! Crush them now!" But his words had lost their power. His fleets no longer looked unstoppable. They looked afraid. In the middle of the chaos, a single human voice broke across all frequencies. Calm, steady, unshaken. "You asked for our surrender. This is our answer. Fire for fire. Blood for blood. We will not bow." The words spread across the battlefield like lightning. Human crews cheered. Even as ships fell, they cheered. Even as lives were lost, they pressed forward. The Council had never seen such defiance, such unity. And then came the moment the galaxy would never forget. From the shadows of the asteroid belt, hidden ships emerged, massive human dreadnoughts, the largest vessels ever built by their kind. Until this moment, they had remained hidden, waiting for the signal. Now they came, engines blazing, guns glowing like small suns. The lead dreadnought opened fire. A beam of pure energy tore through 3 alien ships in a single shot. The battlefield shook. Council admirals screamed in panic. Their fleets, once confident, now crumbled. The humans had not just built an armada. They had built a weapon powerful enough to challenge the greatest empire in the galaxy. As the alien lines broke, the silver-skinned elder watched in silence from the council chamber. Around her, lords screamed in rage or fear, demanding explanations, demanding retreat, demanding more fleets. But she only whispered to herself, "They warned us. We did not listen." Back on Earth, the Admiral gave the final order, "All ships, drive them back. Let the galaxy see who we are." And humanity answered with fire. For hours more, the Council's fleets tried to stand. But it was too late. Their formations collapsed. Their admirals fled. The humans pressed forward with relentless fury, their armada blotting out the stars. At last, the order was given from the Council's side. Retreat, the mighty fleets. Once symbols of fear turned and ran, and in the silence that followed, humanity stood victorious. The galaxy had changed. The Council had demanded surrender. Humanity had given them an answer they would never forget, and this was only the beginning. The battlefield was silent now. Wreckage floated through the void, glowing embers of ships drifting like broken stars. The smoke of war hung heavy across Earth's skies, but humanity still stood. Their fleets were scarred, their worlds shaken, but they had not bowed, and the Council had fled. For the first time in centuries, the greatest empire in the galaxy had retreated. Their war fleets, once symbols of fear and obedience, had turned away in shame. On Earth, people gathered in streets and on rooftops, looking up at the heavens. Where once they had feared the Council's fire, now they saw their own ships shining proudly against the night. They cheered, they wept, and they whispered words that would echo across generations. "We did not bow." In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Lords shouted accusations at one another, their voices filled with fear. The bronze-skinned lord raged, his claws tearing at the council table. This cannot be. This was a mistake. We were not prepared. But his words were hollow. Every alien present had seen the truth with their own eyes. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had not been broken. They had stood against the storm and hurled it back. The silver-skinned elder, quiet as always, finally spoke. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. You thought them small. You thought them prey. But they are not prey. They are fire. Remember their words. They warned us. No one laughed now. No one dared. Beyond the council, the galaxy trembled. Messages spread like wildfire through stations, colonies, and border worlds. Soldiers told stories of human ships blotting out the stars. Traders carried tales of the battle where the council bled. Whole species, long crushed under the weight of the council's power, listened in awe. Some called it madness. Some called it impossible. But many whispered hope. If the humans can stand, perhaps so can we. The legend of Earth spread faster than any fleet could travel. In taverns, in marketplaces, in hidden rebel camps, one phrase became a rallying cry. Humanity refused to bow. Back on Earth, the leaders met in silence. The victory was real, but so was the cost. Ships had been lost, lives sacrificed, and the council would not forget its humiliation. We have won a battle, one general said. But the war is not over. The council will return. The admiral of the armada stood tall. His voice was steady, though his eyes carried the weight of loss. Let them return, he said. We have shown them what we are, and we will show them again if we must. For the first time in history, Earth's nations did not argue. They did not compete. They stood as one. Humanity had been forged into something new, not just a people of one planet, but a force among the stars. Every ship that had survived the battle was repaired. Every shipyard that had built war was expanded. Every child born under the night sky grew up knowing the story of the day their world defied the galaxy. And in their hearts, they carried pride, not just in victory but in unity. The council tried to recover. They built new fleets. They threatened other worlds. They spoke loudly of their power, but the galaxy no longer feared them as before. The image of their retreat, of their fleets running before Earth's fire, could not be erased. Other races began to question. Why obey the council if humans had resisted? Why kneel if Earth stood free? The council had ruled for millennia with fear. Humanity had broken that fear in a single day. On distant worlds, children asked their parents to tell them the story again. The story of the small blue planet that said no. The story of the armada that covered the heavens. The story of humans who refused to kneel, and the story spread until it became legend. In time, poets would write of it. Soldiers would sing of it. Entire worlds would remember it as the moment the galaxy changed. For the humans, it was never just about survival. It was about dignity, about freedom, about proving that no empire, no council, no power in the stars could chain the human spirit. The admiral, standing aboard his flagship, looked out at the black sky, filled with stars. His fleet was battered but alive, standing guard over Earth. He whispered softly, more to himself than anyone else. They thought we would kneel, but we stood. And now the galaxy knows, and so it was written into history. On that day, the council expected humanity's surrender, but humanity gave them fire. Humanity gave them defiance. Humanity gave them an answer the stars would never forget. And from that day forward, every world, every empire, every council lord carried the same truth in their hearts. When the humans stand, they do not bow.